Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Metzia, DAF Tzadi. We are holding on Peites Hamid Beis on the very last line. Tanu Rabbanan, we have learned the following halacha in a brisa. Parais, we have cows. Hamarachses, which are crushing, betvua. So we have, Rashi says, barley, which are soaked and then dried, and then they kind of thresh them to separate them, slightly separate them from their stalks, from their skins. And that's called chushla, which they would actually feed the animals. In any case, we're speaking about something which is not going to be turned into bread. It's going to be eaten as is. And as Taisus explains, it's already considered sort of a finished product. Okay, so because it's not going further, right? It's not going to be processed into bread. It is already considered nigmar malachta, a finished product. So that's one case. We have an animal working with that. Vadashes betruma u'maser. Another case. You have an animal threshing truma and maser material. Now, how do you get truma and maser at this early point, at this early stage, when it's still in its stalk stage? Rashi says, kigoyin. For example, shigdimai bishibolan. He jumped ahead of the game. Instead of waiting for a fully finished product, he already did the truma at this early point. So now we have stalks of truma. We have an animal threshing on them. In both these cases, which are very unusual situations, so there's no isser bal tachsim, which means that if he's allowed to muzzle his animal, there's no isser to muzzle. If the animal is dealing with either truma and maser, which Rashi says is not a common thing, and presumably that's not what the Torah is referring to when it says, don't muzzle your animal while it's threshing. Who threshes truma and maser, right? Interesting svara. Usually we do that by the Rabbanans. We don't do something unusual and unreal. The pasuk is speaking about your routine type of standard situation, which typically does not entail threshing truma and maser material, so that's out. And in the first case, it's rather simple because it's already nigmar malachta, it's already fully finished, fully processed, and we learned the other day that at that point there's no need to feed the animal and allow him to partake and snack off the food. Avol, says the Brisa, you should know, nevertheless, to avoid any appearance of impropriety, we don't want people to think that you're muzzling and doing an isser. Maybe bull. You grab a handful from the same type, you take from elsewhere, and you hang it into the basket, coming off its mouth, and allowing the animal to eat from it. So, this is apparently going on the truma and maser. We don't want him to eat from the truma. But in any case, the point is, you still should go out of your way to feed the animal while he's working. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, he doesn't necessarily have to bring specifically that same type. Maybe karshinim v'toilolo. You can hang up some beans as well. That's the best food. Shakarshinim yafas lamin akoil. You should know for the animal, for the para, the most healthy food is the other beans. Okay, so bottom line is, the animal's threshing in truma and maser, there's no isser to muzzle the animal. Here comes a kasha. V'ramini, we have a kasha from a conflicting brisa. So in the first case where it's fully processed, there's no bal sachsim. But in the second case, shows the truma mas, or if he's threshing truma and maser material, if he muzzles him, he gets an isra of sachsim shabadisha. That's a kasha. Let's finish the brisa. If a guy is threshing a Jewish-owned animal and muzzling him, the owner is not over because he didn't do anything. And likewise, in the reverse, if Yisrael uses an animal of a guy and muzzles him, he is over. It's all about the person, right? Not about the owner of the animal. Bottom line, we have a stira, kasha, because in Brisa number 1 we say, if an animal is dealing with truma and maser, don't worry about muzzling him. In the second brisa, we say, yes, worry about muzzling him, even though it's truma and maser. Kasha, truma, truma. We have a contradiction between truma, kasha, maser, and maser. Likewise on maser. Brisa number 1 says, no worries. And brisa number 2 says, yes, worries. Says the Rabbi Shlomo, truma, truma, like kasha. We can answer the contradiction regarding truma. Kam truma. Brisa number 1 is speaking about real truma, actual truma. So there's no way we're going to let him eat. Kam geduli truma. But in the second brisa, something which grew from truma is what we're talking about. So he had truma and he planted it. The crop, the outgrowth of that truma is really only truma with rabbanon. Rashi Tesis explains, we're concerned that why did the Chacham consider it truma? Because we're concerned that perhaps a farmer will delay. Well, will not want to give the truma to the kohen. He'll plant it to save himself some money. So Chacham made a gzera. You plant it, fine. But the growth is truma, but it's only truma d'Rabbanan. There's another concern that maybe truma will be tummy, and the kohen will, hold on to it because he can't really use it properly. He'll hold on to it to plant it, and by the time he gets around to it, he might eat it, which is of course a big issue. So that's the basis for the gzera d'Rabbanan, that gedulei truma is considered truma, but it's only d'Rabbanan, and that's the material that the second brisa is referring to. And since it's only d'Rabbanan, we treat it, Minatorah is treated like regular grain, for which you can't, on which you can't muzzle the animal. So that's the answer on truma. Truma versus gedula truma. Truma d'oraisa versus truma midrabbanan. Elamasra, masra kasha. But how are we going to answer the kasha regarding masra? We can't say the same thing. You know why? Perhaps we'll suggest the same idea. Kan b'maser, brisa number 1 is actual maser, original maser. Kan b'geduli maser, brisa number 2 is speaking about something which grew from maser, which is maser midrabbanan, but that's incorrect. Geduli maser is nothing, no concern there. Bishlam geduli truma truma. Something which grew from truma is truma midrabbanan. Ela geduli maser chulaninu, but something which grew from planted maser is not really anything, it's chulin. It's not as we learned. Gedule tevel, gedule maser sheni chulin. As Tesis explains, there's no reason for there's no basis for concern. Why would a Yisrael, who's the owner of the maser sheni, delay it and plant it? I mean, if he doesn't want to eat it, let him just redeem it and transfer onto money. So bottom line, there's no gzera, and therefore there's no concept of gedule maser. Elo like kasha. Rather, we look for another way to answer the stira between the two brises pertaining to maser. Haba maser rishon, haba maser sheni. The first brisa is speaking. The second brisa is speaking about maser rishon. So maser rishon is mutter to anybody. You meant to give it to the Levi, but anybody can really eat it. So that's covered by the pasuk. Like sachser mishor b'disha. Don't muzzle your animal while you're threshing your thresh. Your material is being threshed. It's yours. So there's an Isra le'sachser. But the first brisa, which allows muzzling in this case, is speaking b'maser sheni. Maser sheni out of Yerushalayim is not really edible. So it's not called ishay. It's not accessible to its owner. It's not edible. So it's not included. It's not covered in the pasuk of sachshem shar b'dishay. Another way to answer would be hav maser sheni. Both brises are discussing maser sheni. Well, the kasha, and the answer is Ha Rabbi Meir. Brisa number 1 is Rabbi Meir speaking. Ha Rabbi Yehuda. Brisa number 2 is Rabbi Yehuda. How? Ha Rabbi Meir. Brisa number 1 is Rabbi Meir. The Amar Maser Sheni Mama Gavayahu. He says Maser Sheni belongs to Hegdish. It's Hashem's. It's heavenly material. It's not personally owned by its owner. So it's not called Disha. It's not yours to feed the animal. Ha Rabbi Yehuda, whereas the second brisa is Rabbi Yehuda speaking, the Amar Maser Sheni Maman Hedjidu, he says, Maser Sheni is, for all practical purposes, owned by its owner. It's your private material. It's considered your possession, in which case it's called Dishay. You're threshing your material. And therefore it's included in Leisachs. The Amar Maser Sheni Maman Hedjidu. Asks the Gemara Echidami. Now, just let's go back to basics. How do you ever get Truma and Maser in a stalk form? We're speaking that he jumped ahead and he decided to designate the Truma, the Maser, while still in its stalk state. And that works. Asks the Gemara, okay, Rabbi Yehuda, fine. So Brisa number 2 is Rabbi Yehuda. It's mom and headed, it's yours. And you must share it with your animal while he's threshing. What do you mean? You're outside the Chaim of Yerushalayim. You're not allowed to feed it to the animal at that point. We're speaking that he threshed it within the confines of Yerushalayim. Beis Pagi, Rashi says, is the outer perimeter, the outer wall or whatever. So basically it's within Yerushalayim. Another way to answer the seeming contradiction between Bryce number 1, which says when you thresh maser, you don't feed the animal. Bryce number 2 says you do. The first Bryce, which says you don't, is speaking about actual maser. Kamra maser demai. Bryce number 2 is speaking about a suffix maser. You bought some produce from an Am Ha'aretz, an unlearned fellow. There's a takana called demai. What is this? What is this? Demai. We don't know whether the owner had already separated the truma and the maser or not. So there's a special takana established by Yochanan Kohen Gadol that we must treat it lechumra, restringent, and separate the trumas maser and maser sheni, which many Amiyah Aretz will know not to care for, not to take care of, not to look after. So it's maser, but only midrabanan, because actually most Amiyah Aretz were careful. So since it's only midrabanan, the law of like sachsem sharbadisha is applicable. It sort of overrides the issa drabanan, and we feed it to the animal as well when necessary. Says the Gemara, oh, now once we've discovered this solution, truma namli kasha, this could be a proper answer for the first question, the stira between the truma. Kama truma svadai, the first brisa which says don't feed it to the animal, is speaking about actual truma. Kama truma strimai. Brisa number 2 is speaking about truma of demai. So since it's only midrabanan, right? Says the one, no, that doesn't work. Bishlem and maser demaika. Of course, there's a concept called maser sheni of demai. Elo trumas demai miika. What do you have? Truma gedola of demai. There's no concept of truma gedola by demai, because Vatani, we learned in the brisa, afu, it's going on Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Bitel as avide. First thing he did was he canceled the concept of vide, where every few years the owner would say, well, I attended to all my obligations, I gave the truma to the kohen, right? And the master rishon to the lip. 1 second, he couldn't say that because they've changed the system. They diverted the master rishon from Levium because they failed to come up when Ezra HaSefer came up to Eretz Yisrael from Babel. So they sort of penalized them and they shifted the master rishon to the kohanim. So it was no longer acceptable, it was no longer proper to say, well, Hashem, I did everything as per instructions, the master rishon to the Levi, because he wasn't begin to the Levi. So he canceled that whole system, number 1. Number 2, what did he do? Because he established the whole concept of demai. Why? What was that based on? Because he took a poll and he saw things were not going well. He went and inquired within the residencies, the cities of Israel. Viran, he picked up a very disturbing fact. Because the Hamoinam, the common people, were not really looking after their truma and master obligation fully. The only thing they cared for, truma gedol, they knew was very important, very stringent. So that was something that you don't have to worry about. But other things like maser sheni, like trumas maser, that you would take off by demai. So bottom line is, we can't say there's a concept of truma gedola of demai. There was no din of taking off truma gedola from demai. Elo like kasha, rather, let's modify the answer a bit. Looking to answer the kasha between the two brises regarding truma. So instead of truma gedola, which wasn't really a present factor by demai, kama trumas maser vadai, kama trumas maser demai. Oh, because there was a concept of taking off trumas maser from demai, because the Amiyah Aretz were not careful about that. So the answer is like this. Bryce number 1, it says truma is potter from loisachsam. It's speaking about trumas maser, not truma gedola, trumas maser of vadai, of actual tevel. Whereas Bryce number 2 is speaking about trumas maser of demai, and therefore we allow the animal to partake in it, and we apply the din of leisachsam sharbadish. So what's the bottom line? We have a stira. Bryce number 1 says there's no yisur leisachsam sharbadish about truma and maser. Bryce number 2 says there is. So we answer it in several ways. First of all, regarding truma, we could say this is vadai, this is actual truma, this is gedula truma. Or we can say this is Trumas Maser Vada and Trumas Maser Shal D'mayim. Regarding the stira of Maser, we can say three things. Maser Rishon, Maser Sheni, Reb Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, or Maser Vada and Maser D'mayim. In Boiler comes another interesting question. Sorry, Boimin Rav Sheshes, the following question was asked to Rav Sheshes. How you say chelas? Let's say the animal's having intestinal issues, and as he eats, he sort of lets it out, umatrezes, and you see that it's he's got to take a break from eating. Okay, so it's coming out in liquid form. It's harming him. Mahu, can I muzzle him when I work with him? What's the question? What's the point of allowing the animal to eat off his food, off his work material? Because it's beneficial, it's healthy to the animal. In this case, we know it's not; it's detrimental. So therefore, you have a right to muzzle him. Or perhaps the chazio mitzvah, the reason why the Torah instructs us to keep the animal unmuzzled and the food accessible is because otherwise he sees the food and it distresses him. He wants to eat. And even in this case, when you know it's not good for him, fact is he's in distress. So he responded to Nisual. Remember that Brisa, Rab Shimon Yechai Omer, maybe karshinim v'toidelam. Remember, he said you can bring the beans, shakarshinim yafers lo menakod, because actually that's the best food for it. Shmamra. So apparently, if Rab Shimon Yechai is using that as an important factor, as a basis for his halacha, the whole point is mishum dimali lahu shmam. The whole point of feeding the animals is to help it and make it healthy and strong. So otherwise, if it's detrimental, if it's harming him, you muzzle him up. No issue with that. Here comes a new question. I understand that a Yisrael owner cannot muzzle his animal while he's working, but what about asking a guy to do it for him? Can he instruct his neighbor, the guy, you know what, muzzle my animal and use it and thresh with it. Okay? Interesting. Rashi says, he's telling the guy, muzzle him and use him to thresh the guy's material. But otherwise, there would be an issue, because if the Yisrael is going to use this muzzled animal to thresh his own, he's basically threshing with a muzzled animal. So there would be no, of course it's asur. So the point is, he's telling the guy, muzzle the animal and use it. He's allowed to do that? Yeah, but Taisus disagrees. Taisus says that it's allowed even if it's the Yisraelis. He says, no, otherwise, if the guy is using threshing his own wheat, there's no concern that, of course, it's mutter. It's only if the Yisrael is utilizing the guy's services. Say, please muzzle my animal, and I'm going to use it to thresh. You use it to thresh my tvuah, so I'm benefiting from it. Right? So I'm basically using the guy, telling him to muzzle and thresh my tvuah. I'm using him to save that on that material. Is allowed to do that or not? But shall we say? There's no problem. When do we say that it's an Issa D'Rabbanan to instruct a guy to do an Issa? Shabbos. That's pertaining to Shabbos, and Taisa says Yom Tov as well, Chol HaMoed as well, on account of Shabbos, because it might be confused with Shabbos, because Shabbos is unique. The Isser Skila involves a terrible consequence. If a person does a malach on Shabbos, there's Skila. Aval Chasima, the Isser Lav, perhaps when it comes to muzzling, Chasima, it's only a Lav. We don't have this Isser of Amira L'Nachri being a Shavuos. No, perhaps no, there's no difference. If you can't do it, don't instruct a guy. Tashmai comes a right. So if a guy took my animal and muzzled it, and right, there's no bal sachsim because he's doing it, not me. Okay, so I didn't do an isra, I didn't do a isra Torah, I didn't get a lab. But apparently there's an isra. You don't get a lab, but midrabanan I can't be involved in that. So the more no, but then with the Isur Nami Leka, perhaps there's no Isur as well, because he's doing it Nami. I did ton of Seifa. The reason why the Bryce discussed the Isur of Isachsim is V'adid Tonesef is because in the next part of the Bryce it says, the Yisrael Hadosh, B'parasa shall nachru oiver. I want to highlight the next halacha. Yisrael uses the guy's animal and threshes with a muzzled animal. He is oiver, right? So that's a strong point, he's oiver. So we wanted to dwell on the oiver, Tana Reisha and the oiver. So in the Reisha, in a contrasting case where the guy did it, instead of just saying it's totally mutter, it says he's not oiver. Really, it could be, possibly it is totally mutter. Tanashmai comes another right to this question whether I can instruct a guy to do the Isser for me. The Shochel Ya'alavu the Shmuel. So the people in Yisrael sent a shaila, a question to Shmuel's father, whose name actually was Abba Bar Abba. What's the question? We know that a yid is not allowed to sterilize his animal, even though it can be beneficial. It strengthens the animal if it's going to be used for farming. Not allowed to do that. It's Isser Torah. What about if a guy is friendly to the yid and he knows the yid can't do it, so he's going to do it for him? Handling Torah, these oxen, the ganvan armoy that the goyim sort of kind of steal, right? They sterilize it and they give it back to the owner as a favor. Mahu, is that mutter or not? Shalach Lut, he responded, Harama Isabadu. They're finding loopholes, they're cutting corners. Arimu Alayvi is dam. We do the same to them. We come down hard on them and we force the Jewish owner to sell his animal. He can't hold on to it, he can't benefit from it. So apparently, the Isser of instructing a guy, Amir al-Nachr, being a shvus, hold back, don't do it, that applies to all types of Isurim, not just Shabbos related Isurim. It applies to Sirus, it applies to L'Sachshon Shabbat Isha. Amra Papa, no, who says? Maybe that's only because Sirus is a specific thing. B'nei Ma'arava Sabrla, the residents of Eretz Yisrael who asked this question, they hold Kirab Chitke. What does Rab Chitke say? The Amma b'nei Noach Metzuvim ala Sirus. They hold like Rab Chitke, who says that Sirus, sterilizing an animal, is one of the Isurim that pertains to a guy as well. He has Sheva Mitzvahs, he has this as well. In which case, it's not just a matter of Amira l'Nachri Issa d'Rabbanan. No, there's Issa Torah taking place because the guy can't do it, and I'm enabling him. Don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man. Right? It's an expression. Don't enable an Isra. So that's why they will penalize. But suppose it's something that doesn't really pertain to a guy like Sach Soim. Perhaps it's mutter. So it's a machlekes. So at the end of the day, is there Amir al-Nachr by other Isurim other than Shabbos and Yom Tov? Machlekes Rishonim. Some say based on this teretz, no, it only applies to Shabbos, Yom Tov, and because of Chitke, right? This teretz differentiates between, but other Rishonim, Rush himself, right? Rush brings other Rishonim. He says, that there's no Isur, but Rush himself says we don't pass like Rav Chitke. So according to us, this is not really a proper way to explain. It's not a plausible explanation to Shmuel's stringency. And apparently, the reason why he's strict is because you're not allowed to utilize a guy's services to do Isser, any Isser. Okay, bottom line is he penalized them. He says they have to sell it. You cannot hold the Yisrael owner has to get rid of the animal. So Rabbi figured come down really hard. You have to sell it to a slaughterhouse, which pretty much gives you a very low return. You can't even sell it to a farmer. You're coming down too hard. That's a little overdone. Dayan shekanast alein mechir. It's enough that we penalize them that they have to sell. They can't use it. They have to sell it, but you can sell it for a high rate to a farmer. So once we know you have to sell it, pshita. So the following case is certainly pashut. B'noi gadol. If he sells it to his adult child, right? It's considered like a stranger. He has his own life. It's considered having sold it. That's okay. That conforms to the to the knas. What if he sells it to his young boy? So he sold it, but it's still within the family. It's his young son. Rav Achi Amar Asa. He says, no, you can't do that. It's playing games. Rav Ashi Shari says it's okay because after all, technically, legally, it's sold. So you have fulfilled this obligation. Maremo Mazutra, they had an episode with their animals that a guy took it, right? Some say Hanatrei Chasidi. There were other pious people, individuals that had this episode. So they wanted to be Mekayim, the takana, the knas, Machlifi Hadadi. They just made a swap. Instead of selling it to a stranger, they flipped it in fulfillment of this knas of Avod Shmuel. Boy Rami Bar Chama. Let's go back to like Sachsoim Shar B'dishay. So out actually muzzling him is asur. What about causing the animal to withhold from eating. Right? Let's say what about placing a thorn, something very uncomfortable in the animal's mouth, which prevents him from eating while he's threshing? Says the Gemara, what do you mean? He's actually inserting the thorn that's like muzzling him. That's outright muzzling. I mean, that's like, right, muzzling this way or that way. It's the same thing. You're preventing him from eating. Of course it's us. Sorry, let's say he notices that the animal got this splinter in his mouth. Must he take it out during threshing or not? So he's not eating because of his own doing. He got this thorn. Am I mechuyev to take it out or not? So we're not sure about that. Okay, assuming we have to. But let's say hirbitz la'aribim b'chutz ma'u. Next question. Is it okay to crouch the scary lion right outside the room there so the animal is so gripped with fear that he's not going to eat? Hirbitzla, actually bringing the animal, that's muzzling him. Again, that's a direct act of withholding food. Ela ravatz, la'arim b'chutz ma'u. What if the animal showed up? The turn around is a scary lion. Do you have to chase the lion away to enable the cow to feel comfortable to eat? Yes or no? Assuming you have to. What about the next case? Hamed b'nom b'chutz ma'u. What if he brings the animal's offspring to stand right outside, which makes the animal uncomfortable and worrisome and prevents him from eating? What if you notice the animal is very thirsty? He's not going to eat because of that. Is that okay? Can you proceed with threshing? What about covering the threshing material with a katavlaya, with a leather mat, in which case the animal won't see it and won't eat it? So are these things permissible or not? The one thing we could certainly clarify, the owner is allowed to starve his animal, so he's renting out his para to somebody else for threshing. He can starve his animal for 3 days, so that the animal will go and totally partake in the other guy's material, right, while he's threshing. Likewise, the farmer who sees a hungry animal, he's allowed to go ahead and preempt it. He's allowed to go untie a pekia amr, a bundle of hay in front of the animal, so he fills up with cheap hay. He doesn't need the expensive material being threshed. So bottom line is, we see that you can prevent him by doing these types of activities, preventative measures, feeding him the hay beforehand, etc. So it would seem that likewise regarding our questions, right? At least regarding the question of the right, Rashi says like the covering the material with leather mat, which is okay, right? Alright, so just like you can stuff him with hay to prevent him from eating further, likewise covering the stuff. Says the Gemara, no, what's the connection? Shani Yosam de Ka'achla, huge difference. Here you're feeding him, you're filling him up, so you're being fair. Instead of eating the tvu, he eats the hay. But you want to compare this to a fellow who's covering he's not feeding the animal, he's threshing with a hungry animal, and he's covering up the stuff, so he doesn't need that. Who says that's mutter? Another way to answer this, to differentiate between the cases, when the Brisa says that's allowed, I can stuff him with hay, speaking before it happens. Right, the Gemara thought that he's feeding the animal hay while he's threshing, so he's sort of covering the threshing material with hay, and no, we're talking about feeding him beforehand, before he enters the threshing room. He doesn't eat from the grain that he's threshing. So he's filled him up beforehand. He's not doing anything as he's threshing. He's not preventing him as he's threshing, as opposed to covering it with leather, with a mat, which is asur. Here comes another question. What if he muzzles the animal outside the threshing room and then brings him in muzzled? Is that okay? Torah says, don't muzzle him as he's threshing. Here he didn't do it as he's threshing. No. Torah says, don't thresh a muzzled animal. Amar Laisi says, Go back to your family's tradition, meaning Rabbi Yonasan was a kohen. Go take a look at the halachos that pertain to your family, to kohanim. What does the Torah say? Don't come into the Beis Hamikdash drunk, right? When you come in, don't drink. Literally, don't come in and drink. But what about drinking before and then coming in drunk? Is that okay? Of course not. Of course not. The Torah gives us a reason. Don't come in this manner because you're not going to be able to differentiate between proper avodah and kodesh and choy. You're not going to know what's going on. You're not going to have the proper clarity. So what do we see? Elahos mahosam. So actually, just like over there, b'shas bi'elatei shichur. Torah is telling you, look, when you enter, when you're here, don't be drunk. Don't have drinking wine, right? Don't be a fellow who drank wine. Doesn't mean don't drink here. Don't have drunk wine. Hachanam here as well when it comes to muzzling b'shas tishlei techasima. Doesn't mean don't muzzle him as he threshes. Don't thresh with a muzzled animal. Whether you did it inside or outside, same thing. Turn when it comes to another halach. If a person muzzles an animal but doesn't thresh, or he pairs together two species, and another fellow goes and threshes with the muzzled animal, or uses the hitched pair of animals to hitches it to a wagon and uses it potter. So the one who actually put them together or muzzled these potter, he didn't do the isra. This is consistent with what we said a minute ago, right? The isra is don't thresh with a muzzled animal. Potter ben eloike. So the original guy who did it, right, who just prepared it, he doesn't get malchus. Eladosh umanik glavad. The only fellow who's actually liable to the isra is the one who's threshing with a muzzled animal, who is riding, working with this kilayim pair. Itmar, here comes another shayla. Chosman b'koil v'niga b'koil. So let's say he has an animal about to thresh and he yells at him, scares him off, and prevents him from eating. But it was merely by way of his voice. V'niga b'koil. Or he has kilayim and he's giddy-upping in them and getting them to pull a wagon. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Chayev, you get malchus. Rish Lakish Amar Pati, no. Why? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Chayev, Akima as piv have a maisa. So although a masa, a physical act, is required to trigger malchus liabilities, but here you have a masa. The movement of his mouth. It's not just sound waves. How did he get to those sound waves? He fashioned them by movement of his mouth, of his lips. And that's called sufficient masa to hold him fully accountable and gets malchus. Rish Lakish Amar no potter. Kol lo have a masa. Forget about the mouth and the lips. The actual vehicle, the actual tool was his voice, was the sound with the sound waves. That's not something which has tangibility, and therefore he doesn't get malchus. Okay, let's recap today's daf. We had a stira between Braysos regarding Truma and Maser. We answered with many different ways. We had the halacha that feeding the animal while he's threshing is meant to help him health-wise. Otherwise, you're allowed to prevent, allowed to withhold. Amir al-Nachri, whether it's a shvus regarding other halachas, that was an interesting discussion. We had a story about Abu Shmuel made a knas regarding the goyim who did this service for the Jewish owners. We had all kinds of cases of sort of preventing the animal from eating, but not through actual muzzling. Then we learned the idea that the isra is using a muzzled animal. And regarding using koil to generate these isurim, Rabbi Yechon says, Chayev, Rish Lakish Amar Potter. All the best to you and Hatzlach.